The greatest power you possess is your ability to choose. Join Lowe's Moore as he reveals how you can begin to maximize that power by exploring yourself on the deepest levels and committing to making lasting and positive changes. Get ready to achieve breakthroughs that will lead to accelerated growth and transformation, because you are now tuned in to The Blueprint.
Why the actions contradict the lamb. I'm fellowshipping when I'm with the fam. That's more relations, that's forming a phonic.
Hello and welcome back to the Blueprint Podcast. I'm your host, Lowe's Moore, and I'm excited to be back with you again on another Blueprint Podcast. I mean, I want to kind of down my emotions for just a moment. We lost, a few weeks ago, I lost one of my teammates when I played with the San Diego Clippers. I lost Bill Walton, who was a good friend. And on yesterday, I lost a mentor. I lost a friend. I lost alumni member in the logo, Jerry West. I mean, he was one of the main reasons that I went to West Virginia University. And, I remember when the coach came in, assistant coach Jim Amick, may he rest in peace, he recruited me. And he showed me one of the reels of West Virginia in my counselor's office. And when I heard that Jerry West had gone to West Virginia University, I got excited. I got really excited because, he was one of my heroes growing up, and not only my hero, but really a tremendous hero to Earl Tatum, great Marquette player, drafted by Jerry West. I mean, actually, they were a splitting image of each other. If you listen to them talk, they had the same voice tone, the same mannerisms, and they both had that beautiful and amazing jump shot. And in the picture you see in front of you, we were at Bob Huggins at West Virginia. We were at his fantasy camp. And I mean, Jerry was actually lighting it up. And I got to tell you this quick story, right? So I'm standing and we're taking pictures for the fantasy camp, and he's standing next to me, and I'm 6'1", and he's about 6'4", 6'5". So he's looking down at me, right? And he said, young fella, you know what? Back in the day, I would have ate you up, man. I was like, oh. I was like, okay, Mr. West, it is all good. And at the time, his son, Johnny West was playing for West Virginia University. So after the picture, I go over to Johnny and say, yeah, your father's a little arrogant, right? He's a little cocky. He said, yeah, I get it. I get it all the time. I said, no, I respect him. I love him a whole lot, but I'm going to tell you, man, I would have dunked on his head back in the day, man. So, but don't tell him, I want him to keep his ego good, So, but Jerry West, I have to say this also. I was a sophomore coming out my sophomore year, and the most amazing thing happened in my life. I was in the gym in the Coliseum working out, and out of nowhere, I see a guy come out of the locker room area, and it was Jerry West. He spent he felt compelled to come and meet me for whatever the reason. And we spent like 2.5 hours in the gym, 3 hours in the gym, man. He was showing me some different techniques. We just talked about basketball, man. I could not believe it, man. I could not believe I was standing there talking to Jerry West. It was my first time meeting him. And it was just awesome. He's going to be sorely missed. He's had an impact as a player. He's had an impact as a person, as an executive, a GM. I mean, he's just impacted the NBA in so many ways, and he's going to be truly, truly missed. So I just wanted to get that out the way, and I wanted to play a quick video. That's Jerry West, West Virginia NBA legend, and I want to play a real quick video. Because we're going into this Father's Day weekend. So I want to play this short video and talk about fathers for just a moment. All right. Yeah, you can put that. You can put that that picture back up. Yeah. Anybody can be a father, but it takes a special person to be a dad. I want to say Happy Father's Day to every father everywhere. That's that's really focused on protecting family, loving his wife, protecting his families, supporting his children, and loving his children. We had a deep discussion. I want to say happy. We had a deep discussion the other day, and on what we consider what's the difference between today. Now we know in the past a father and a dad was the same thing, right? But today, when we had a discussion on last Tuesday, what's the difference between a father and a dad, right? And those are my words of the week is father and dad, right? And then I want to say Happy Father's Day. I got a list of that's the word of the week right there. Fathers versus dads. And then I want to say Happy Father's Day, right, to some amazing men. You know, as you see up there, myself, my father-in-law made, you know, a heavenly Father's Day, both my dad and my wife's dad. And then all my brother-in-laws, my brothers and brothers-in-laws, man, I want to say Happy Father's Day to you guys as well. Man, you guys are awesome and doing your thing and taking care of your families, man. I love you guys. You know, awesome. And then I want to say quickly, I think we have some these are the young dads, man. These are these are my nephews, these are my son-in-laws, right? These are my sons, my godson. They all fathers and doing a tremendous job. I want to say happy fathers to my sons and nephews, and you know, enjoy this week. Some of us are gonna be together, but this weekend, but enjoy it, right? Is nothing more powerful than being a father, right? And we definitely need fathers in this day and this time. So I want to say a couple of happy birthday shout outs. I think I have. Oh man, my sister-in-law Carla, right? Royce and Malia. Oh my, that's my girl, Malia. I miss Malia. I mean, to see her grow, man, and develop, man, is awesome, man. Got a little time to spend with her during Memorial Day. We had a good time hanging out, right? And I love her progress, man. But happy birthday to all you guys. Enjoy it. You know, I'm hopefully you get all your birthday wishes. And then to happily heavenly birthday to my cousin Larry, man. And he just recently passed away so unexpectedly. I mean, yeah, it's still hard to believe that he's not here, right? And look, happy heavenly birthday. And I think I need to move on because I'm getting like a little crazy here, you know, emotionally. But yeah, so let's keep rolling. And I want to before I show the book of the week, I want to show this video of my guest today. And so I want to show this the video. Let's see here. I got a couple of them. I want to confuse my wife, so I want to kind of show her the one I want to use first because we haven't had a chance to kind of talk about it. So the one that says Etan Thomas 2. Let's check that out.
Well, on this Father's Day weekend, many families will take time out to honor their dads. But for young boys and girls living without a father's love and guidance, well, life can be indeed very tough. NBA player Etan Thomas is the author of a new book called Fatherhood, and in it, he speaks from the heart on how dads can actually help their children live their lives beyond the dream. Etan Thomas is an NBA free agent. During his career, he's enjoyed playing for such teams as the Washington Wizards, the Atlanta Hawks, and the Oklahoma City Thunder. Several years ago, at the age of 29, this talented and respected player received news that could have ended his career. A leaky heart valve forced him to undergo open heart surgery.
You know, it changes everything, your whole outlook on everything and stuff like that.
During his recovery from the intense surgery, Thomas, who enjoys a very close relationship with his wife Nicole and loves being a family man, had time to think and grow rich in appreciating the joys of fatherhood.
And I was able to spend, a lot of time with Malcolm. Like, we bonded, like really bonded. Something that really opened your eyes to being thankful for everything that you have and everything that you've been able to do.
From those times of reflection, Thomas has been extending his reach beyond the NBA to serving youth and families throughout America. He is a participant in President Obama's Fatherhood Initiative, which encourages men to become better fathers. Thomas also reaches out to teenage boys in juvenile detention or tough environments who are living without a father. He encourages them by sharing his own life experiences of being a child without a dad at home.
I see myself in them. You know what I mean? I'm like, I could easily be sitting right where you're sitting. It's just by the grace of God that I'm not.
What is the message you're trying to drive home to American dads?
My real reason for wanting to write this book in the first place is to inspire young people who grew up in a situation where they didn't have a father in their home. We always heard the statistics of telling us how, you come from a broken home and you're not going to make it. So now what? Life isn't over. You still have to be able to make it. So you recognize that even though it's not the most favorable situation, it's a situation you have and you make the most of it.
To help deliver a wake-up call to men, Thomas enlisted the help of highly revered professional athletes, coaches, actors, politicians, and leaders of faith to share their insights on being a dad. Men like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Yao Ming, former tennis champ Andre Agassi, actor Taye Diggs, Ice Cube, Tony Hawk, and more.
I was blessed. I had other people talk to me when I was younger. And so with this book, I wanted to get people who young people recognize. And everybody's just telling them positive stories or stories of their experiences, of what they've learned, because it's really just learning from other people's experiences.
A lot of the stuff that he is helping young men come to terms with now, he walked through the process as he wrote the book. As a husband, he's gracious, he's kind, he's encouraging and supporting and loving, and as a father, he's all those things as well. So it's just who he was that, when we met, he's the same exact man as he is now.
That is the greatest compliment you could get from a wife. Etan Thomas doing his best to encourage fathers to help their children live their life beyond the dream.
Wow. Let's welcome Etan Thomas to the Blueprint Podcast. Etan.
Hey, thanks for having me. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Hey, check this out, man. You said it before we got on, man. Persistent. I've been persistent. I think I think it's what 2 years? It got to be 2 years or something like that. Right? Yeah, I think it was because we talked about it. Yeah, because I've been doing it for 4.
Okay.
Well, 5. This is my new season, the third podcast in the new season, my 5th season. Right. And then we were in Atlanta. I think it was in Atlanta.
Okay.
At the King Movement Summit.
Ah, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I think Atlanta was back there a little ways, and I started mentioning to you about the podcast. We shared numbers and information and stuff like that. So it kind of started then. Right. And when I found out that there's a lot of people that have important experiences that can impact, people. And one of the things I wanted to do during the pandemic, when I retired from the Boys and Girls Club after 27 years as the executive director and director of development, was what was I going to do next? So we were all feeling kind of a little eerie during the course of the pandemic.
Of course.
So I said, okay, what am I going to do? And in my in my goals, when I creating my goals, whether or not I was going to stay in the club, leave the club, all those things, I wrote down, I wanted to use my degree in communications, right? Of course, I communicated at Boys and Girls Club, but, I decided I was going to do the podcast. And when the pandemic hit, right, I wanted to encourage people. And I thought that having conversations during that period of time would encourage people, because so many people had so many great stories and great lives, and it wasn't all easy. So when I heard you speak, at the at the summit, I was like, hey man, people need to hear about Etan Thomas. And that wasn't the first, I don't know if it was the first time, but you were at my high school, Malvern High School.
Okay.
And Chris Broussard and the King Movement had a basketball game there. Right. And we were there together.
Okay.
And then we were on the same panel at the New York Liberty game at Westchester County Center. We talking about social justice issues.
Okay.
So
that's right. Yeah, we come across each other. So it's just meant to be. That's all it was.
Yeah, it was just meant to be, and I had to be patient.
Yes.
But let's start out. You heard me, usually on the podcast. First of all, I want to say Happy Father's Day.
Oh, to you too.
Right. And in my research, man, for years is like, I know you're a family guy. Right. And I love that, and your whole setup has been set up for, I had you in my phone and set up for a couple of years now, your book. So my book of the week, of course, is your books, but with the focus on the one on fatherhood. Right. And so talk a little bit about that before we go any further. Talk about your books, but start out with the fatherhood.
So fatherhood was a book that it was really a passion project for me. I wanted to get a lot of different men from all walks of life, and let's all talk about this topic of fatherhood. And there was a lot of different things that I wanted to touch on with the book. So in one aspect, I wanted to show just men loving their children. You really wasn't seeing that, especially with athletes, especially with Black athletes, Black males in general. The whole narrative was that, the opposite. You weren't fathers, and you don't take care of your kids, and don't do, so I was like, well, no, it's not everybody. Let's highlight. It's important to show that side, but let's also highlight this side as well. So, talking to athletes, it was great. I mean, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Grant Hill and, Ice Cube, and, just this, and I was just talking about them with their children, loving their children. And it's so interesting because, Ice Cube don't smile a lot, right? But he was talking about his son. He couldn't help but smile.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And that's just how that it is. But you don't see that side of, men a lot. So I think it's just real important to show that side. No, from another aspect, I wanted the book to be inspirational, especially for young men, who were constantly told that they couldn't make it at life if they came from a so-called broken home. And it was interesting. I heard that all my life. And I had a relationship with my father, but he didn't live in the house. It was
right.
Parents were divorced, so visitations, everything like that. So he wasn't physically living in the house, which it is different. But to always hear the negative statistics hurled at you your entire life of how if you come from a so-called broken home, you're gonna end up in a gang or in jail or pregnant if you're a girl, or something terrible is going to happen. And I was like, well, it doesn't have to be that way. You know what I mean? Like, I hear what your statistics are saying. I hear, and I remember being on a panel discussion at Morehouse College, and I'm sitting there with, Alonzo Mourning and Stephen A. Smith, and it's an amazing panel, and that was the topic of discussion. I wrote about it in the book, actually, and that was one of the things that really kind of pushed me. I was like, all right, I got to write this book. You know what I mean? You can't make it because that's not true. You definitely can make it. So I, just enlisted a lot of different men, and we all started talking about, everybody has a story, and used it for inspiration.
Yeah, no, and it's powerful because I also it's on my phone. Usually I show it up there, but I got both your books, The Fatherhood and We Matter. Both the books, and I've enjoyed them. And, because it's so important, like you say, when it comes to negative information, man, we probably get 90% of it.
That's right.
Right. When we talk about things, the first thing we're going to talk about is bad fathers. And, and that's why we had this discussion on, I'm a chair of the King movement in Westchester, New York. So we had a Zoom call, had about 15 men on, and our discussion was, and my son, I had at the end of it, I mentioned it to my oldest son, and my youngest son were there upstairs after I got out. And I mentioned to them, and they had a totally different perspective. I mean, it was just, we get into debates all the time. So he was like, what's the difference between a dad, a father and a dad? And they looking at me like they the same thing. That's what they were saying. But when the 15 men, right, the 15 men that we were having discussion about, it was a totally different conversation when you asked them, what's the difference between a father and a dad, right? And they went off on a tangent, all 15 guys, like it was something stuck in them,
right,
that needed to come out about what you just said, and your dad could be in the home, but not be present.
Definitely.
Right. Or he could be out of the home and be present. I mean, we went through that whole discussion, and they were talking about how they were treated by their dad. And you could see these are, some younger guys, but older guys at their age still feeling like lost about this thing, man. So when you talk about fatherhood and you talking about the impact or the lack thereof,
right,
your book is very, very, very important. But we don't talk enough about it enough. It should be talked about so more consistently.
Yeah, and a lot of the programs I've been involved with and speaking with young people, you hear that come up a lot, and it's something that as men, whether you're a young man or a seasoned man, I don't say old, it's kind of you're kind of taught to push your emotions down and not discuss them, because you don't want to reveal a sign of weakness or anything like that. But there are things that are, a lot of men are carrying from childhood that, they've just kind of compartmentalized and pushed down and gone about trying to make it in life. And once you start peeling back the layers, you really start seeing, oh, wow, I didn't even realize I was still bothered by that. It's an amazing thing, but also reading somebody else's story, and them talking about different aspects of what they've had to deal with on their way to whatever it is that they've accomplished is something that is very, inspirational as well. And it can be encouraging as well, because you see the finished product of people. You see them in their light as far as them being, in the NBA or, in an NFL or, in albums or producing movies or whatever it is. You don't know what it took for them to get to that point. You don't know the mountains that they had to climb. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You don't know the hurdles that they had to jump over and everything like that to get to that point. And you don't know what they're dealing with even currently. And that's the part where You know, a lot of times with social media, people think, oh, this person has, you know, the perfect everything, but you don't know what's inside. You don't know what happens once they turn the cameras off. You know what I mean? And they're home. That, but in the aspect of fatherhood, though, and of men being with their children, it was so interesting because, you know, talking about just from NBA players, and they're doing more now. So, and it's interesting because it's not, you know, I'm not that far removed, but technology has changed a lot in the past, you know, 10, 15 years.
That's right.
So you see a lot of players showing themselves with their families through their own social media. And then you see, you know, the camera and the, you know, news and reporters start showing a little bit more of players with their families. But you didn't see that before. That was not how it was. You saw them on the court, you know, grinding out, menacing, everything like that. And then you saw them in a post interview, and they might be upset at a reporter asking them a crazy question like, why did you lose? You know what I mean? Like, I lose. Yeah, but so you see them in that aggressive state, and that's all you know of them. But you don't get to see them where they come out of the tunnel after the game and their daughter runs up to them and jumps there in their arms and they're twirling them around, you know, in the back. And we all see that, you know, and we're interacting together and everything. And, you know, players that were just, you know, going to war on the court, and now your kids are, you know, talking to their kids and you're sitting there talking. They never showed that. So that's another aspect that I wanted to show with the book, was just showing Black men, you know, Black athletes and athletes in general with our children. And a lot of the feedback that I got was like, wow, we didn't really see that too much. So the feedback in the book is great. It's, you know, it's always been great.
Oh no, it's awesome. I mean, because, you know, I'm before you, and well, I was a young guy, so I didn't have a family at the time, but you didn't, even the guys who were veterans, you know, I didn't see a lot of their families.
Mm-hmm.
You know, maybe you see their wives or their girlfriend, or, you know, but, you know, not a whole lot of kids running around. And like you see today, you seeing those images of, you know, Kyrie Irving, you know, picking up his girls, you know, Steph and his, you know, sons and daughters. I mean, you're starting to see this, and you like, because you actually emulate what you see. Right. If you see none of that and all you think of as that athlete was like, he's driving the cars, he's got the houses, and he got all the girls running around, you know, and all you portray in media when those things happen, and he was in the bar, he was at the strip thing. So that doesn't represent family.
Right.
But now you're starting to see, right? You're starting to see more of these players and their family and their wives. And I mean, it's just, for me, it's just a positive thing. And I think you have a lot to do with that when you start to speak about it, when you write about it and people can see it, they think about it.
Well, it's like in the, you know, if you remember the movie Malcolm X, when they brought the 2 cups of water to Malcolm, and, you know, one was, you know, dirty, and he was like, if you give this to the people, they have no choice but to drink it. And he put the dirty, you know, iodine or whatever it was in the water, and it was all dirty. But then if you give them this choice, and they could choose, then they can have a perspective. So it doesn't mean that this one is erased, but now they can at least see that this part exists as well. And that was my only problem with the media sometimes, was that they always showed one side. They always, you know what I mean? I was like, well, the only side there, you do understand that. But then, you know, that was the issue for a long time, especially with Black men, because one side of Black men was only shown. And they're like, oh, well, you know, you have Heathcliff Huxtable, but that's just make-believe. So we're not, you know what I mean? And
that's right.
I grew up with. And then the only time you saw a Black man on the news or talking or something like that was something negative, unless they were an athlete or entertainer or something like that. And then you start having people that are from places where they don't come into contact with Black people very much. You know what I mean? There's just, that's one thing. People sometimes are under the illusion that there's more Black people in this country than there are. You know, and we're simply like 12, maybe 13% of the total population in America. So you have different places where there ain't that many Black people. You go to Iowa, Wyoming, you know what I mean? Utah. So their only contact with Black people is through TV. Well, you know, if all they're being shown about Black people with these negative images, then they start thinking that, well, this is the nature of Black men in general as a whole. And then if they even turn to music, so they start hearing only and that was another part of it, because with music, there's a certain image that was always shown of music, but there's a lot of positive brothers doing great music, and it's dope, but it's not on the topics that are the negative topics. But they are not getting pushed the way the negative topics are. Then you have to ask your answer why. Why are they only pushing this, and not this? And that's again to what I was speaking to before, was if you give people only this to drink, you know what I mean?
That's right.
That is the reality, and that's all there is. And that becomes very dangerous, when you don't present, more than one aspect, of a group of people. And then how that influences the younger generation, and how that influences, you know what I mean? Not because it's not how, it influences white people who don't come in contact with Black people think. How it infuses younger people who are looking at everything and saying, oh, this is the reality, so this is what I'm going to go into and emulate. Because this is, and this is what is all of this person. So a lot of times, when speaking at different places and using this book as a backdrop, a lot of the feedback is, during the time I was a part of I call him President Obama, but then President Obama, he had a fatherhood initiative, and I was a part of it. And he would tell the story of, his relationship or non-relationship with his father, and how that did not stop him from being the president of the United States. So it was like, so if he had this situation, although you're always told these negative statistics about what's going to happen to you if you don't have a father at home, if you don't have, you know what I mean, you're going to end up all these actual stats, like you're going to end up in jail and everything like that. You have President Barack Obama that is telling you that he did not have a relationship with his father, but there's ways that he was able to, through mentors, through everything else, make the right decisions and to become President Obama. You know what I mean? And have a wonderful family, a wonderful wife, and everything that he has built. So it can happen. So using that to be able to inspire young people is something that is important. Like it's so crucial, and it's something that I think is missing a little bit more nowadays, because it's getting a little bit back towards the negativity that I was referring to before. And so you would think in some ways you would want more, you would have more access to with more in the invention of social media and Twitter and everything like that. But now it kind of seems like we're being bombarded with more negative images. You know what I mean? I mean, maybe I don't want to sound like the old man, get off my lawn type thing, but I'm scrolling through social media. I'm like, what is this? And I'm like, all right, let me mute this. Let me block this. I don't even want this on my feed. I don't know what's going on. And really, not to get too into, but Twitter has changed since it's no longer Twitter. It changed. Now there was a shift to negativity that started being prevalent and being bombarded with. Well, you have to think about how that affects young people. I mean, we're grown. We know how to mute stuff, and this is not what we need to see, and that, to remove it from our, spirit and everything like that. But what about young people who are just getting bombarded with this all the time? Every time they turn on their social media, they don't even try to click on something. It's clicking on something negative and clicking on something, you know what I mean? And that's the part where, mentors are so important. And there's, a whole chapter in the book about mentors and how important they are.
Right.
And for young people to be able to, look towards as, examples of what they want to emulate, what they want to become, the difference between make-believe and what's real, what they're being shown of themselves, and what they really should aspire, who not to listen to and who to listen to, all those different things that are the same things that their parents are teaching them, but they, sometimes young people hear it differently from mentors or other people. So like you mentioned Chris Broussard and everything that he's doing with the King movement, so amazing. Can't speak, what he is doing is encouraging that mentorship, especially from from black men and black men of faith, that black men love Christ and want to put Christ in the center of their life to garner and direct their decisions. You know what I mean? I mean,
yeah.
I can't say enough about Chris Broussard and everything that he stands for and all the work that he does.
Yeah, and the crazy thing when I was thinking while you were talking, and and I was looking back at my life and the things that influenced us, right? So it was music, in the beginning, before there was television. My dad and everything, it was music, right? So we listen to the music, and the music kind of forms what we think, forms our opinions, and then we go from music and you go to television. Right. And then things used to seem to be wholesome, right. In terms of television, and then all of a sudden you get the change in that, and then you create videos. Right. Now all of a sudden the videos come on the scene, and then you got BET, and then you got, Video Soul, and you looking at these videos, and then you got the whole rap game. Well, we know what the rap game started out as, right? And then it kind of went left, and then now you say, okay, well, we're not really impacting young people as much with those videos and the music anymore. So we got social media, something that was supposed to be all of it.
Right.
It is for positive, but the nature of resource, how do I get money out of this? And so if you get more money doing something negative, right, you keep doing it because you want more money. I mean, so if it's money driven, when scripture said the love of money becomes the root of all evil,
right?
It didn't say that that money was evil. It just said the love of it.
Yeah, and people misquote that all the time. But continue. So, wait, that's not even what the Bible says. But
yeah, right. And then so when you look at what are young people looking at,
right,
on social media? I mean, from everything that Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, whatever it is, what's the first thing we gravitate to? We look at, they put something up, right? And we gravitate to what's negative, not what's positive. And you have to be taught how to use these things.
I agree.
So you're absolutely right, man. When it comes to that, and let's talk about, because you got a broad spectrum here. So you got the fatherhood, and we're talking, this is the Father's Day weekend is coming up, and then you got these other books, right? And to not only talk about fatherhood, but to become socially conscious, right, is important as well. So talk about We Matter, and I think you got a couple of other books out besides We Matters. I had it up there a little bit earlier.
Oh, yeah, no problem. Yeah, so We Matter, I wanted to really capitalize on the boom of activism that was happening with athletes at the time. And it was, centered around, after George Floyd and, Trayvon Martin and Eric Garner and everything, and people were starting to pay attention more to police brutality, and really just honing in on this big boom that was happening with athletes and using their voices. And I was just like, oh wow, this is like a throwback from like the time of the 60s, because I grew up admiring the athletes like, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and, Bill Russell and Muhammad Ali and John Carlos and Tommy Smith. And I can go down the list of athletic activists that use their voices and their platforms, right? So I interviewed, a lot of those athletes, interviewed Kareem, interviewed Bill Russell before he passed, interviewed Layla Ali, which is, Muhammad Ali's daughter, John Carlos, Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf and Greg Hodges, all the athletes that I grew up admiring. I was like, man, I'm sitting here with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. You know what I mean? It's been absolutely amazing because I read so much about him and I, learned so much about him growing up. And so I was able to really hone in on what caused them to have the courage to be able to speak out on different topics at a time where it was not popular. Like it wasn't accepted. Like people weren't, welcoming them with warm, open arms if they speak out against something, I mean,
oh yeah, definitely.
And it wasn't. So now you'll hear people talk about John Carlos, and he's praised, and he's, this and that. I was like, but in the '68 Olympics, when they did the Black Power salute and they came home, they were vilified.
Oh yeah.
Public enemy number one. Like, it was like, don't get it twisted. That is not the reception. So I wanted them to talk about all of that. But then also I wanted to talk to the current athletes who were using their voice.
Well, you had mentioned Craig Hodges. Craig Hodges and I were roommates with the Clippers. And so, I'm at the time I'm a minister, and of course Terry Cummings was there. And so Terry and I used to go share at different churches in different cities, and then we go community centers and stuff like that. But me and Craig were roommates, and he was Muslim and I was a Christian, and we got along well because we debated all the time. That's what we spent all the time debating. He would show me all the things that he was receiving and all the things that he was trying to pull athletes to have more of an impact in their communities.
Right.
I mean, and I think the nation was trying to pull athletes as well. And he was conscious, and he was outspoken, and he was a good player, right? And he could shoot the heck out of the ball, and but he wasn't afraid, and I always admired that, of him, and so it was a powerful relationship between two guys, right? As well as Tony Campbell. I know you remember Tony Campbell when we were in the CBA together before he went up to the Lakers, and he used to come over, man, and we'd debate, the Quran and the Bible, and we'd be up all night, just going back and forth about, what our belief systems are. Right. And not afraid to share those things. Right. Because if you can just talk, if you're just going to go play basketball, right, and that's all you're going to get out of it. I played basketball, I was an all-star. I got a nice house. I got a car. Right. But you haven't used your platform. Right. Because there's a purpose and a reason that you have these gifts and these opportunities, so that you could use that platform not only to show that you're a good player, right, but to also become conscious, help people to become conscious, about the love or lack of love, or the lack of the injustice or justice, whichever one it is. And you got to be able to speak. You got to be able to use your voice and the opportunity, because it's so fast. You and I both know, you look up and you're valuable when you're playing. Everybody wants to touch you, speak to you, and you have a voice. And all of a sudden you, just like that, right? You're retired and you're not getting the same applause.
Of course.
So people don't listen to you as much.
Yeah.
Right. So unless you create another vehicle, another space to make that happen. But
yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And I think that guys like it kind of really I don't call it, they're kind of throwbacks when you see what I love about Melo, Wade, LeBron, all those guys that started to come out, when things were wrong to speak. And then I love it when people say, man, you ought to stop.
Yeah, of course.
You ought to shut up and dribble the ball, man. I love it because, like, hey, this is what it's really all about.
Of course. And that's why I really wanted to capture the current players as well, because then they're inspirational to the younger players. So, talking to D Wade and Melo and Russell Westbrook and, all of them, they were speaking up and people were getting upset, but then other people were curious as to what was having them all riled up. And I got that a lot. So I was speaking a lot of different colleges and universities all across the country. And I remember one time I was speaking, I think it was at UPenn, and it was, mostly white athletes, students fraternity, everything like that was in the audience. And one of them, raised their hand during the Q&A. He said, listen, that I hear what you're saying, but that's not my world. So it's not something that I even know to even be able to comment on, because when I get stopped by the police, I just give them right, and that's it. And so the few Black people that were in there, started laughing. And then they were looking around like, why are they laughing? And it was like, because the thought when we get stopped by the police is, oh, well, I hope we just don't get a ticket. That's not our thought. We have everything right so the situation doesn't escalate. And that's the difference. So then hearing Dwayne Wade talking about how he's afraid for his children, for his sons, when you remember when Trayvon Martin happened, and Geraldo Rivera made the statement that, well, if he wasn't wearing a hoodie, those hoodies are so scary. He's like, wait a minute, my kids love wearing hoodies. What you mean? He's like, wait a minute, so you're gonna look at them as a menace just because they have a hoodie on? But the difference is, it's when Black children wear the hoodies, not when white children wear the hoodies.
Mm.
You know what I mean? So then it's not the hoodies, because you could wear a baseball cap, you could wear a cowboy hat, you could have
That's right.
locks, you could be bald headed, you could have a tight Caesar, you could have Jerry curl. It don't matter, because the hair and the hat is not what's causing the officer, when they stop you, to be afraid, to have their hand on their gun when they're stopping you for turn signal, or what I mean, or something nonviolent. So talking to college students around, especially white college students, they paid attention to it more once they heard one of their favorite athletes talking about it. Now, of course, it shouldn't be that way, but that's the reality of it.
Yes,
so they hear LeBron
is.
about it. They hear Wade talking about it. They hear Carmelo. They're like, huh, well, I never thought about it like this. And then they get interested in it, and they start looking more. And that's the part that makes, this is Kareem who, said this to me during his interview, the opposition nervous, because they know the power of the influence. So then what does the opposition have to do? They have to try to discredit the voice. Oh, LeBron doesn't know what he's talking about. He should just shut up and dribble. He's a basketball player. What does he know? That kind of thing, because it's out of fear, out of what he's saying and the effect that it can have. So the whole reason why, Kaepernick and him taking a knee, and why they reacted so strongly, it was like, why are y'all so, why is it so strong? Like, why are you? And Kareem was like, well, it should be expected, because they know the power of the athlete voice and the amount of influence that it has. And when he said that, I was like, huh, that makes sense, Kareem. That is exactly the truth. They are afraid of the power of the voice and how it can influence people. And that's the reason.
Wow. Looks like we may have froze here. Well, I'm gonna ask you a question. You keep talking, and I'll figure it out. Okay. So talk about you got the book on police brutality. Mm-hmm. Talk about that.
Sure. So I wanted to take a deep dive into the history. It's almost like a follow-up to We Matter, and take a deep dive into the history of police brutality, supremacy in this country. And I interviewed so many different athletes and activists, and people that are speaking about race, and I wanted to really discuss it and explore it first from a historical standpoint, and then from the standpoint that really made white people uncomfortable, and that's like talking about white privilege. And so for the section that I talked about white privilege, I only interviewed white people. Different white people talking about Tim Wise, you know what I mean? Sue Bird. It was great in-depth discussions, because that was like one of a hot button issue for a lot of people, the topic of white privilege. And it was like, well, why is that such a hot topic for you? Why are you so, you're acting as if you don't exist? Doesn't mean that you didn't work hard for what you achieved. Doesn't mean that you're not, but there are things that happen throughout your life that, you didn't have to experience because of the color of your skin. For instance, when you're stopped by a police, you have a wholly different experience than when I get stopped by a police. And that aspect of really exploring that historical white privilege. So that was really good. Also, we took a deep dive into January 6th, the insurrection, and it had just happened, and interviewed a lot of different people, and I interviewed police officers, and they're talking about what they saw, and it was really eye-opening for a lot of people who wanted to feel and think in their mind that we are in a post-racial society that we were never in. A lot of times you heard, well, after the elections and President Barack Obama, that's the proof that racism no longer exists. And that couldn't be further from the truth. So yeah, just took a deep dive into all of that. And it was really a special presentation because it was presented in a way that, you're hearing the accounts of different white people talking about what they were not taught about racism, or how they were taught to feel superior from the time that you're in kindergarten. I mean, let's think about it. So you're taught from kindergarten that your people came to a place where people were already there, existing and living, but it didn't even count as being discovered until your people came there. Just that alone, how would that not give you a feeling of superiority? And just breaking that down, but then in turn, how do you think that makes the other people feel who are not of the same races as you? And what is being taught from that point, and it just keeps going all throughout education. So that aspect was one that was really, it was difficult for a lot of people to read, but they understood it once they read it. And I was able to really also hone in on a lot of the family members of victims of police brutality to try to tell their stories. So I started working with Emerald Gardner, who is Eric Garner's daughter, and Tiffany Crutcher, who is Terrence Crutcher's sister, and Valerie Castile, who is Blana Castile's mother. This just goes on, and telling their stories as to them fighting for justice for their loved one that was killed by the police, and how they wanted the laws to be changed, and how they wanted things to be able to be different so that what happened to their loved one didn't keep happening to other people. So, those are things that I explored in that book. And it was really it was a deep project, but it was a project that was definitely needed for a lot of people to read.
Yeah. And it looked like, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine.
It looks like you had a number of people, like Chris Broussard, and a number of people make comments, in the book as well, which is powerful. I didn't get that one yet. I need to get that one. I don't know if I'm overheating in here, but you keep rolling. My wife is on the other end, but let's digress. Let's digress for a moment. And let's talk about family. Talk to me a little bit about, because there's, three main focuses of the blueprint is, number one, the importance and power of family, right? The importance of faith, and the importance of education. And if you can talk about, grandparents, mom and dad, and their impact in those three areas.
Oh, wow. Well, for me, it was, it was a village, like my grandparents, and the same way that for my children, they have a village. And it's so important, to have that village and learning from the generation before you, as far as just experiences. And it's so special. That's one thing that me and my wife really, stress with our kids, is learning from the generation before you and asking questions and listening to them and, learning from them. And it's something where, the world changes so drastically, over the years. So the world that my mother grew up in wasn't the same as the world that I grew up in, and different from the world that my children are growing up in. So there's new challenges and new things and new obstacles. But the way to navigate it through, and knowing your history and knowing your culture and knowing where you came from and knowing the struggles and triumphs that your family has gone through, it puts yourself in a different, perspective on life. And that's something that I really have tried to impart to all of our children. And it's something that they have appreciated and they've learned for. I'm blessed to have, the wife that I have. We just celebrated our 20th anniversary, and 20 years is a blessing. It is. We met in college. We were young.
That's so cool.
We, continue to grow and learn from each other and grow together. And that's one of the things that I also want to really impart and stress, is the importance of finding someone that you're equally yoked with and that you build together and you encourage each other. And that's something that is so important as far as for young people to be able to have that instilled, because you have that instilled from an older generation, because that's not necessarily what they're being told through social media to find the emphasis on and to value. So that has to come from home. Like, there's certain things that we talk about. Well, we're also fighting for, them to be educated the right way in school. And you have, critical race theory and the whole thing about, that the society is like, okay, we can't teach that. Okay, don't worry about them teaching that. Yeah, we're going to keep fighting for them to teach it. But while we're fighting, we got to make sure that we're teaching it at home, because that is what is important and where they get their foundation from, and to know who they are in this world bigger than themselves. And they're going to be, bombarded with so much in the world, and just knowing how to be in the world but not of it is something a concept that they're only going to be able to learn at home, because the world is going to tell them to conform to what is prevalent in the world. That's what the world does. You know what I mean? Whether whatever it is, whether it's TV or social media, whatever, they're going to tell. So in talking to the fathers, and imparting that on their children, it's like the importance of preparing them for life, because you're not always going to be able to be there to guide them and protect them through everything. So you have to prepare them for when they have to make those decisions on their own. And they're bombarded with things opposite of what their fundamental beliefs are, and how they're going to react to it. Are they going to conform? Are they going to know whose they are and who, who they belong to, and what they're about, and have the pride in themselves and their history and their culture when they're told the opposite, when they go to different institutions. I mean, all that stuff starts at home, and we can't rely on schools to be able to prepare our children for life, and only schools. We cannot. And Malcolm X said that in the 60s, the Panthers said that in the 60s, the same thing applies right now. We cannot allow that to be the only form of education that they receive. And that's something that I really stress in the fatherhood book, because it is needed for us as fathers to prepare our young men and women how to be successful in a society that does not necessarily care about them. And that is the truth. We got to give reality pills to them, like not sugar-coated pills, reality pills. You know what I mean? And break it down the truth of this is what you're going to face. and you have to be prepared to be able to face it, you know, and you're going to have these people that want to tear you down spiritually, emotionally, your self-worth, yourself, you know, everything. And you have to be able to withstand that and know whose you are. So the job of a father is so important, and it is the greatest blessing and one of the greatest challenges, because there's so much that you are responsible for in crafting, you know, your children's minds, emotions, and preparing them. So it's of the utmost, you know, importance.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you broke that down, and you're absolutely right. And I'm hoping that when we play this, man, that, you know, we get a lot of coverage on this, because as we go into this, well, June is supposedly Men's Health Month. I named it Men's Awareness. I mean, we need to know, because I don't think we have a month. I mean, you know, I think
You're right.
So you have to just say, and there's so much stuff in this month.
Yeah,
It's Father's Day month, and there's a whole lot of stuff in the month.
I agree.
Right. And so we don't really, but we need to have this conversation over and over again. And this needs to be a training. I mean, I think in every church, you know, our focus in regard, particularly the Black church, you know, more than just getting members, right? We need to be talking about family. We need to talk about what that family looks like, right? And we need to know not the role, right? Because not the role of the mother and father, because they're different now. Right. You know, then when my father grew up, he was a provider. He did all these things he needed to do, and my mother was a nurturer. And eventually she had to get a job, right? And so that's what you have today, is just that everybody is, you know, everybody's working, so everybody has to work, you know. But when you look at Dr. Miles Monroe, right, in his book Understand the Power and Purpose of a Man, right, he's talking about purpose of that man. What's the original intent for man? What's the original intent for woman? Right. And if we identify men as he identified men, which is foundational, right? You sitting in your house, I'm sitting in my house, right? And nobody's gonna walk in. They may walk in where you are, your man cave, where your office, and say, "Oh, that's a nice office. Oh, you got a beautiful home. I like that home." Right. But nobody's gonna walk in your house and say, "Man, you got a good foundation."
Right.
Ain't nobody looking at the foundation, but that's what we are. We hold this up.
Yep.
Right. And when you do not have that foundation, right, and when you don't speak about that foundation, right, they say if men are in crisis, whole society is in crisis. And that's what we find ourselves today. We find ourselves in crisis because the men are not there, the fathers are not there, right? And women have got to take on this stress and strain by themselves. You know, and so what your information, your book, I'm not going to say information. I'm going to say your books are revelatory. They're revelation, right? They reveal knowledge, right? And people need to hear it. You know, they need to hear it, read it. You know, unfortunately, right? And one of the reasons why I do the book, right? Why I do the book is I do the thing on books, words, affirmations, right? And then I give a little music, throw a little music and a movie in there. And why I do it is because illiteracy is at an all-time high. We don't read, right? So if you're asking an athlete, if you're asking a young Black man or woman today, oh, I want to be successful. What do you want to be? Right? But they can't read. Right? You can't comprehend what you read. You can't write those things down. If you can do those things, then you can be proficient in anything you want to do. Right? And so my even though my mom and dad struggled, right? They were always pushing. There was encyclopedias there, you know, all these children's books, and they were always pushing, you know, for us to read and go to school and do all these different things.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so yeah, you're absolutely right, man. The home, right, is the foundation of our education. It's the foundation of our future. So yeah. Man, talk about your wife, man. You know, I saw the little video there, and the comments that she made inside the video. You know, talk about that relationship, that connection, that you guys seem to have a, you know, amazing connection there.
Yeah, we definitely do. We got an old picture from us in college. Yeah, but no, it's she's a blessing. That's the only thing I can say. Is she has been a blessing to my life, and I think that one of the things that, you know, in talking with young men is how careful you have to be with who you choose as your soulmate, as your wife, as the person who you're going to spend the rest of your life with, and how you do not take that lightly. And it's, you know, we have some deep conversations, you know, and it's conversations that young men need to have with other men who are, and that's why, again, Chris Broussard, shout out to all the work that he does with the King movement. But it's really important to have, because society will tell you to look at certain things, and that be the thing that is the most important thing in who you choose. And it's important to be careful who you listen to and who you take counsel with. And this goes both, this is for young men and young women. As you know, young women can get some of the worst advice from other women, just like men can get the worst advice from other men. You know, that's right. It goes both ways. But yeah, being able to really hone in on what is important and talking to people who have been successful in their marriages and in their relationships. Those are the people who you need to seek counsel with, not the people who you don't even remember them even having a steady boyfriend. You know, you know what I'm saying? Don't take their advice. You know, go to somebody who is, you know, celebrating their 30th anniversary, their 40th anniversary, that have a beautiful, you know, foundation, everything like that. Talk to them to see what it was that got them through to be successful in their marriage. And I, you know, was just blessed with, I, you know, talked to my grandparents, and, you know, they were together, you know, till death did them part. And that is the way that, you know, should be the goal, that you find someone who you want to spend the rest of your life with, who makes you better as a person and you make you better as a person, you know, who becomes your best friend and you can confide in them, that helps you both spiritually, emotionally, and mentally when you have times that you need for them to stand in the gap for you. You know what I mean? That's the goal. That's what you want. And, you know, like I said, I'm blessed to, you know, have had that, and to have that now. And it's where, you know, it's such a blessing for me that when I'm talking to other young people and I'm hearing what they think and how they think, it's like, wow, you're so young. You know what I mean? You're so young. But that's where we have to do, as, you know, as men of faith, of couples of faith, to be able to counsel, you know, the young people, and use ourselves as examples of, I mean, and not saying that anybody stands as being perfect, you know, but use your, you know, mistakes that you've made in the story and in the counseling. You know what I mean? Don't just present it as, oh, like you're, and that's one thing as parents, you know, I know one thing, you know, as you get older, you know, you start telling stories a lot to your kids
that they don't want to hear. They'd be like,
this is what happens. You got a story for everything. Like, oh, I remember back in 1993. That's just how it happens. I didn't mean for it to happen, but it happens. But the funny part is, you'll tell them a story and they'll finish it for you. Be like, Dad, I know this story. This happened. You know, like, oh, I told you that one before.
Yeah, then you have to say, did you get the point?
Did you get the point? Right. As long as you can tell me what the point was, then we good. If not, you got to hear the story again. You know what I mean? But really, it's, you know, sharing with them what you've learned, because one of life's best teachers, I'm messing up the quote, but it's one of life's best teachers are experiences and mistakes that you've made. You know what I mean? Those are life's best teachers. So if you can explain that to a younger person, they can learn from the mistakes that you've made. They respect you more because you're not presenting to as a way like, I made no mistakes, I'm perfect, and this is what you have to do. No, it's not that. I made plenty of mistakes. You know what I mean? I learned from them. And you need to learn from them too, so you don't have to make the same mistakes that other people made before you. And that's really, you know, it's so important. I mean, I had mentors, you know, talk to me. We had, you know, people in the community, people in my church, the elders in my church, people in my family, the grandparents, everything like that. And the village is so important. I can't say it enough.
Yeah. Talk about you got some athletes there. So talk about your daughter's sports experience.
It's great seeing them. I actually have to go to their practice here soon. But yeah, no, it's great seeing them. They both play competitive volleyball, travel teams, and you know it's amazing. They're getting ready for nationals now, and just the work and the dedication that they put in, and being able to train, and you know the ups and downs, because stuff, you know, anybody that knows the athletes, it doesn't always go well. You know what I mean? You know,
that's
always
true.
have a good game. You know, there's this ups and downs, and you know, talking with them and teaching them how to persevere through obstacles. And sports is such a, you know, there's so many lessons that can be taught with sports if it's done the right way. You know, not lessons of I'm going to come in there and save you with every little thing that happens, which, you know, as a parent, you know, you have the urge to do sometimes. But sometimes you gotta let them kind of figure it out themselves. You gotta let them, you don't need to go talk to coach, tell them to work harder, let them go talk to coach, find out what coach wants from them, and then help them train and help them, you know what I mean, perfect those things. If coach tells them, look, I need you to pass better, I need you to move your feet better. Okay, let's do some footwork drills. You know what I mean? Let's go do some drills. So I'm gonna help you out, but I don't have to come in and save you from the situation. The helicopter parent. It's tough because as parents, we want to save them for, like, wait a minute. You know what I mean? Like, you're not happy about what happened? Well, let me go down to the school and see what this teacher did. And it could be all your child that did everything wrong. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no.
So that's the you know, like the tug of the urge to try to do as parents. And, you know, if you're always saving them from every single situation, you're not doing them any favors, because you're not always going to be able to help them out of every situation. Yeah. And there are situations that they need to go through in order to be able to learn the lesson from that situation.
Yeah.
And that's the part with, you know, with fatherhood that you have to learn, because especially with your daughters, you want to be able to save them from everything. You know what I mean? Come in as Superman, problem solved. You know what I mean? Daddy said.
Well, I know that well, because I got two daughters. I had them first, right? So they one's a principal, and the other one's a college coach. Well, right now she's taking off to you know, kind of nurture her 1-year-old.
Okay.
Right. So they, you know, so they and then my son is an actor, entertainer. You know, he's always traveling and all that stuff. Then my youngest son was born with spina bifida, and he's about to finish up college. All of them finished up college, got masters, and you know, doing their thing. And he coaches able-bodied. My youngest, he coaches able-bodied kids, works for the recreation department here. So they all thriving. You know, but when they were younger, even now, man, when you talk to them about basketball coaching, they don't even want to hear you. What you did. Yeah, they were like, "Oh, here we go, man," you know, like that. So I feel you on it. But you in the thick of it, and I want to show this video.
Okay,
I got one more video here. You know, because all our kids are special to us, each in their own way. So I want to show this.
Basketball day in the DMV. A return to the home arena for Etan Thomas, where he spent 7 seasons playing in a Wizards uniform.
I spent a lot of years, with the Wizards, so that was like home. So it was great, the reception was great, talking to different people. It was always great to go back.
What's going on, cuz?
How you doing?
Good to see you. You doing all right? I'm good. How you feeling?
Good.
Right.
You're watching a little man play?
It's been some years. These guys been in the area. I've been away for, quite some time. Guy I have a relationship with for so many years, and then to see now his kids, and how they've grown.
A full circle moment for Etan, getting the chance to watch his son Malcolm play on the very court he once patrolled the paint.
For Etan to play at that high level for the Wizards and then Malcolm to be on that same stage, I'm sure it had to be a proud father moment for him.
I remember him being like a little kid. I remember when my wife told me that she was pregnant with him, you know what I mean? In the hallway right before I was about to come out. I remember walking around with him in my arm like this, and it was really surreal watching him, running up and down the court where I used to play.
Still loose, comes down to Thomas. Short little 5-footer is good.
It definitely was a different experience. I've never played on an NBA court for one, let alone like that court where so much history, as far as like with our family. That was where I grew up pretty much.
As a junior on DeMatha's varsity basketball team, Malcolm Thomas led the Stags in rebounds and blocks.
Malcolm is a special, unique talent. I mean, he athletically, I think he's probably one of the most athletic kids in the nation, not even in the DMV.
Both my parents make up the complete aspect of how I play. My dad, his ferociousness, his aggression. My mom was more of a finesse player. She was a guard, so she was more of a shooter. So I think I picked up both.
And wisdom passed down from a father who played basketball at the highest level is a gift.
Y'all didn't get y'all second win yet.
The best piece of advice that I received, and it was while I was with the Wizards, from Popeye Jones. And he said, you're going to have great games, you're going to have terrible games. The papers are going to talk great about you, then they're going to talk terrible about you. Stay even keel. And I've really been telling Malcolm that for a long time.
It's valuable lessons like those on the court that Etan translates from Malcolm off the court. Besides being a husband and father of 3, in his life after basketball, Etan Thomas is an author, podcaster, and civil rights activist.
And, it's interesting to see now him in a different space. But, really happy for what he's doing, using his platform and his voice. And I think expressing his opinions the way he has it's been helpful for a lot of people.
Let's go. Thank you.
So as the old adage states, train your children in the way they should go, and as they get older, they will not depart from it.
Lets me know that there's more to life than just basketball. So sometimes it's easy to get tunnel vision and realize I'm just going to play until I can't play no more. But then I realize I have to have a backup plan. Like I have to set myself up. Like I enjoy writing like my dad does. There are aspects that he has that he's passed on to me, like the civil rights, what he feels, I feel as well with a bunch of different situations. And I think it's very easy to forget that at times, but always having that reminder, like he's always in his office working before I wake up. Like before I go to practice, he's up working, doing his own stuff. And that really keeps me grounded.
So he was young. I'm taking him to different events with me. He's writing his own poems and starting out and getting his opinion out there and what he thinks, and I want him to keep, developing that. And it's something that, I think is important, especially for athletes, because while you do get tunnel vision and you can be focused and everything like that, you can't be so consumed where you think that that's all that you are, because you're so much more than that. He's heard this a million times.
He's like you said, he heard it a million times.
Definitely has.
before we only got a few more minutes, but before we get off, talk about what it was like. You played at Syracuse, unfortunately, but 'cause I was playing golf the other day, and this guy Larry Woodard, he's in the marketing, and he was playing golf with me. He's from Syracuse because I got my West Virginia bag, and he got his Syracuse bag. And every time I turn around, I go to do business with somebody, or trying to get somebody to come on the board. I look around their office and they got orange and blue. I'm like, come on, man. I mean, my wife goes up to, she works in the, in the field of, dealing with addiction, as a CEO, and she's doing stuff in the state of New York. And so she met somebody up in the state of New York who knew me when I played. And he's like, yeah. But tell him, man, he at West Virginia, I'm at Syracuse, so so talk about that, your son, that whole experience of, being a dad. That's, because I had to learn how to, adjust myself, in terms of, how I address them playing sports. When you've been at the highest level, you're trying to give it all. Right. And sometimes they will listen. Sometimes they won't listen. But talk about that little experience with, your daughters and your son, particularly now. And, that was a little older video. Talk about what he's doing right now with himself.
Well, it's a blessing. He just graduated from DeMatha, and, just took him up to school, Villanova University. And it's great seeing him kind of in his element, and now try to, you have to, it's the next step. So the next step of, from progression from when they're under your care and you have them in here, and then they go out into the world. And it's, because I started coaching my son really young. I was on his AAU team. And so we had that dynamic where I'm pushing him, I'm coaching him, going through, team practices, individual practices, things of that nature, having ups and downs. And when he first, started, I put him on an older team. So I wanted him to play with older guys. I didn't want him to just be the tallest person there. And he just, I wanted him to play guys that were bigger, stronger, faster, just better than him. And he had to adjust to that. So the first few years were rough. You know what I mean? The first few years.
Yeah.
And, I remember my mom and my mother-in-law, being, well, why don't you let him play with guys his age? He's enjoying it. I'm like, no, he's going to be fine. He's going to be fine. Trust me. He's good. And, then after a while, of course, he started, getting better and learning and everything like that. And he had to keep improving and keep working hard. And one of the things about him is how hard he works. So if he can't do something, he's going to go and work on it until he's able to do it. And that's something that I really admire about him. And my daughters have the same type of thing. So he wants to learn. So he wants to always ask questions, and he's always wanted to ask questions. And my daughters always want to ask questions. And the kids nowadays, when they ask you a question or they don't understand something, it's not really just take my word for it and that's what it is. They want the whole full explanation. So
that's right.
That's how, it's more so with their questions. You know what I mean? So they want you to fully break it down for them and stuff. And they appreciated the breakdown and teaching them those things of having to, pull yourself up, after you fall, and to have, to make sure you have your trust in God, and to pray before you make any kind of big decision. And, all those different things, those are aspects that you start talking to them about when they're young, and you see the fruits of it as they get older. So in talking about my son in particular, seeing the young man that he grew into being, and watching him walk across the graduation stage, and knowing how prepared he is for college and that he's ready to go. Now, his parents have to adjust for him not being here. So that's different. But he's ready. You know what I mean? So it's that preparation that has brought us to this point.
Mm.
And it is a special feeling. Like I can't, even really describe it, because that a lot of your hard work and what you've been pouring into them, it was being absorbed. It's interesting because sometimes with kids, you're talking to them and you don't really know if it's really sinking in or something like this. Is something that happens with my daughter. It started happening when she was a little younger too. So we'd be driving and I'd be talking their ear off about something, and you don't really know if they're really listening. They, sometimes they might be halfway lit. I don't know. But then you walk past their room one time and you hear them talking to like one of their friends or giving their friends advice, and they're telling them something verbatim that you said. Like quote unquote, like they had a recording device and are saying exactly what you said. And it's like, oh, you was listening. All right. And that kind of a feeling, it's great because as parents, you don't know if what you're teaching them is sinking in. But those are different examples of just the fruits of your labor, so to speak. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'll tell you a funny thing was that my daughter was playing in high school,
mm-hmm.
and because I was always in their ear about instruction, because my daughter got I don't know if she was mad at me or what, but I trained a lot of players, and one of the players I had recently trained was Ben Gordon.
Okay.
So I had been since he was like in the 7th grade at the Boys and Girls Club. So
Vernon, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And so she was upset one Sunday evening that like, Dad, hey man, you be working all these guys out. You work out Ben, why didn't you work me out?
Right.
Like, hey, why I don't get that attention, So I said, oh, you want to go? Yeah, I'm the director. So
right.
We get dressed, over to the gym. Now I'm instructing her. Right? I'm instructing her, and she's like she don't want to do it. So I said, okay, get your stuff, let's go. Cut off the lights, went home.
Right.
What I'm saying? So like it was like up and down. And then when I was saying something to her, and my wife ended up becoming the coach of the varsity team, because my wife played at Fairfield University and my daughter played at Fairfield University.
Okay.
They both went on scholarship. So I walk her in the gym, and I walk in the gym and she's going through whatever. And I hear her talking to her teammates. Right. And she said, yeah, man, my dad's always talking to me, telling me to do whatever, so forth and so on. So then when her teammate said, I wish I had a dad. He said, your dad played in the NBA, right? And he said, man, I wish he'd say something to me. And I wish I had a dad who would say something to me.
Wow.
And then my daughter was like, she's like, yeah. And it kind of changed the whole perspective,
right,
of what we're talking about in terms of the power of fatherhood.
Yeah.
And then
it's important for them to see that, because it's easy for kids to take certain things for granted. You know what I mean? It's like everybody don't have the situation that you have. Everybody can't go up and talk to their father, or not want to talk to their father every day.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everybody don't have that luxury.
No, they don't. Yeah. And one time I came in, I used
to have to say amen.
One time I was in the gym with the Boys and Girls Club. I used to bring my oldest son in, I used to drop him off, and then he'd go practice, and then I would, finish some workup and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And then I'd come and get him, and then they would treat him a certain kind of way. And I just thought like they treated him that way because, the only reason he on the team because his dad played in the NBA, like that. And then one day I walked in and I said, man, you ready to go? And I put my arm around him. And he was like, yeah, I'm ready to go. So I'm walking out with him. How was practice, so forth. And I heard something in my spirit say, turn around and look. And I turned around. All those guys that were sitting on the side, they were just staring. So it wasn't he was on the team because he's an NBA player. They looked at the relationship.
100%.
Right, that I had with my son. And that's why I try to get more men to come in, because that's what I had. If it wasn't for Mr. Jones to mentor me, to coach me, and so many of our young men today are left without fathers. Right. So, yeah. So any final comments as we get off here?
No, much respect to you for what you're doing and what you represent and the message that you're, putting out there and things of that nature and what you are involved with and all the work that you do. I gotta say much respect for all of it. And I'm glad you were persistent. I'm glad that we got this. It was a great discussion.
Yeah.
It was great.
I do have a final thing, man. What was it like, because I used to think, whenever I walked in the gym, I always thought no matter what level I played on, I was always the best player. Right. Michael Jordan's rookie year, I'm sitting on the bench, Kansas City Kings, before they became Sacramento.
Okay.
And Jordan is wearing Reggie Theus out his rookie year. He's just literally tearing him up. And the coach is like, Lowe's, go get Reggie. I'm like, man, I got to think about this, man. Because I'm like, man, guy got my speed, quickness, jumping ability, and he got this intensity, and I'm like, I got to think about this. This first time I thought there's a guy who's better than me, because he's playing every single second like that. So you're on a team with him. No. And it doesn't really make a difference whether Jordan was a rookie or he was 40.
Right. He's still Jordan.
Right, and then mindset was still the same. So what's your thoughts on playing with Michael?
Oh, well then when I came with the Wizards, I had so many vets that I grew up watching. There was, MJ, there was Charles Oakley. I was a huge Knicks fan, so Charles Oakley, you know what I mean? It was Christian.
Yeah, you were athletic Charles Oakley.
Okay. But it was so many guys. Christian Laettner, and it was so funny because I grew up, I grew up a Fab Five fan, and so naturally I hated Christian Laettner. And I told him that when I met him, but he turned out to be like the coolest guy on earth. You know what I mean? There was so much where friends would holler at me like, hey, so who's cool on the team? Like, who do you think? I was like, look, y'all not gonna believe this, but Christian Laettner is the coolest dude on earth. It's like, get out of here. You know what I mean? Nobody believes it. But I was just soaking everything up and watching everybody. I was watching MJ and his habits and how he handled different things. And when he would have a good game and the papers would praise him. And then when he have a bad game and the papers would tear him up, like, oh, he should have never came back. And he should, that's back when we read newspapers, right?
Yeah.
Nobody on their phones for whatever they are. But I would come in the gym, come in the locker room, and he'd be sitting there with the paper up, just reading it, kind of rocking. He always did this thing with his mouth and everything like that. So I'd be like, huh. So sometimes I wouldn't say anything. I just look, but he'd kind of catch me looking. And I was like, you good over there? He was like, yeah, I'm seeing all these things that these reporters that think they know everything are talking about, so I could shut them all up this next game. And he would say, that's what he would say. And he would go out and he would do it. And he would use it as motivation. And he would. So I'm watching all of that. You know what I mean? Like soaking it all in. And it was an amazing experience playing with MJ because it was everything magnified. You know what I mean? Like the scrutiny magnified, the praise magnified, the stardom magnified, everything was just magnified. It just really taught me a lot. So I think in one of the clips he showed, I said, that one of the best pieces of advice that I got, was Popeye Jones, who told me, that you don't get too high and you don't get too low. You have to stay even keel because it's going to go like that. They're going to love you, then they're going to hate you, then they're going to love you again. That's the way that it works with the media and with the NBA fans. And that really sunk in that year, that 2 years of playing with MJ, because I really saw it. I was like, wow, that was really spot on. Like the same people who sing his praises, because it was such drastic differences. It wasn't just like, oh, he played well, or oh, he didn't play well. It was like, he is everything, guys gift to basketball, and he can do no wrong. Like, and then on the opposite end, oh, he's tarnishing his legacy. He should never came back. He's embarrassing. It was that drastic, just in the same week, going from Monday to Thursday. So that was really the main thing that I learned, is how you have to persevere through that, and you have to block out a lot of the noise, and you have to just keep going.
Yeah. Well, Etan, man, I want to say thank you, man.
Can I ask one question? And then that's really quick. Can you just talk about how people can purchase your book? I think that's going to be something that people might ask. Yeah. All right.
Sure. So to purchase my book, I have 6 different books. You can visit my website, etanthomas.com. They're available on Amazon, which a lot of people are familiar with. Amazon, just type in my name in books, and the different books come up. And I'm a writer, so I have a passion for writing, and I'm gonna keep writing. And so, if you want to see everything that I'm doing and catch up with me, definitely etanthomas.com. Like I said, on social media, on Etan Thomas 36 on Instagram and Twitter. That's
awesome, man. Man, I really enjoyed it. It was worth the wait.
Great discussion.
Yeah, no, great discussion, and hopefully we'll get together in the future, man. I want to, continue to pray for your family, man, and
appreciate it.
And I thank you for all that you are doing, and keep on doing it, man. May God bless you.
Definitely bless you.
Yeah, and so let's jump off here. I want to say thank you to each and every one of you out there that support the Blueprint Podcast every single week. Man, I love you guys. Man, I can't wait to get on and see your comments, even though this is recorded, right? This is a recorded one. And I'm sure there'll be comments as well, because it stays on Facebook and it stays on YouTube and as well. So again, have a happy Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to each and every father out there, and enjoy your weekend, right? And I look forward to seeing you guys next week. And I say each and every week, man, if God allows you to wake up tomorrow, make tomorrow your masterpiece. God bless you and have a great day.
We really hope you enjoyed this episode of Lowe's More, the Blueprint Podcast. Stay connected and follow us at our website, www.lowesmore.com. That's LOWESMOORE.com. You can also join the discussion on Twitter at Lowe's More and on Facebook at Lowe's More Jr. As always, thank you for pushing your mindset towards a better reality. This concludes the most thought-provoking portion of your day. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this podcast to stay fully up to date with everything we're up to. Until next time, be kind to yourself and each other.
What they teaching is a joke. I ain't buying it like I'm broke. Insufficient funds for insignificant.